Hey there, everybody, and welcome to day two. Today, we are going to be talking about finding direction or finding your purpose. Wow, believe it or not, right? I believe that our purpose is to be here on earth and to just create our own reality, whatever that is for you. But there are definitely times where I think we get into this overthinking space. If you're like me, that I'm like a chronic overthinker. Whenever I got to this point in my life where I would want to accomplish certain goals or I'd want to do something like start a business. And I would just like overthink it, overthink it, overthink it to death. So we're in this video for day two. We're going to talk about finding ways to get over that, right? Finding ways to make sure that you're not overthinking and finding ways to find your purpose or find something that you're good at. This is good, even if you already know your purpose, by the way, this is a good practice for kind of refining your purpose. Sometimes I think we might say, like I had a YouTube channel before this, right? Before the YouTube channel I have right now. And I was just talking about random stuff. And it wasn't until I kind of like discovered a purpose doing tarot that I really was able to grow something much, much bigger. So again, even if you already have like a general idea of what you want to do with your life, or if you have a general purpose, this is going to be very beneficial for you. So just like a little side note, one of my favorite techniques is from James Altucher, and he talks about pulling out your cell phone right here, right, and going into your pictures and looking at all your pictures. So that's the first thing I want you to do. I want you to look at all your pictures on your cell phone. Is there something that is repeating in those pictures? Because chances are, if you're taking pictures of something that you enjoy, then it's probably part of your purpose or it's probably something you can include in your purpose. Me, for example, I take a lot of pictures of the food I cook. I love cooking. Definitely like something that I could start another YouTube channel on or that I could start working on, could start a podcast on it, right? I take a lot of pictures of my dog, right? Same thing. Could start a YouTube channel about my dog. It's really my brother's dog. He already has a YouTube channel about it, right? So it's like those are just a couple examples, and that's just one quick technique. We're gonna jump over to the computer again, and I'm gonna show you more ways to discover your purpose, or if you're just looking for some answers, looking for some direction. Hey there, everybody, and welcome to your purpose, or what is your purpose? Do any of us really know? Probably not. But this should give you a little bit of a better idea of what your purpose could be or something that you could use as your purpose for now. Personally, I believe our purpose is to be here to create our own reality, whatever that means for you. And I think our purpose changes from time to time. So this exercise that we're going to cover, it gives you a lot of ideas, but it also focuses you so that you can kind of have something to work towards, or you can have a couple of things to work towards so you don't feel lost, or you don't at least feel like you're not making any progress on your, quote unquote purpose in life. So this is good if you feel you don't have a purpose or direction in life in general. There have been many times where I have felt directionless in my life in general. I always tell the story about when I had a very successful company when I was 21 years old, and I kind of let that company go for various reasons, but I felt very lost and I didn't really have a direction. It was like probably one of the worst feelings in the world because I felt completely helpless. I felt like there was just nothing I could do to improve my situation. And luckily I got out of it. But at the same time, I kind of understand the feeling of not having a direction or not understanding maybe what you should do. The other reason this is important is sometimes we need to grow. I have that here. It's like sometimes we outgrow a purpose. We might start small, our reason for doing things, our why, which we're actually going to talk about this a little bit more tomorrow, and we're going to continue talking about our why through the course. But, one of the things that it does is sometimes we might outgrow a situation. Like maybe we feel like our purpose is to help people through reading tarot, like I do, but maybe we need to grow. There comes a point where maybe we feel like we can help more people or we can do something more with our life. And so, kind of like having a good understanding with these exercises of things that you're good at and some other things that we're going to talk about in a minute, it could give you some ideas on how you can grow. It could give you some ideas on how you can continue to evolve, or it can give you some good ideas on how you can kind of take something like your purpose and bring it to the next step. I have here an example, which is like, it reminds me of before the internet, where it's like people had their brick and mortar businesses and then they had to take them onto the internet. And that's kind of like how, I know that's a little confusing, but that's how I see our purpose. I think our purpose is always changing and the world is always changing around us. And it's like sometimes we have to upgrade our internet, or our business or our purpose. We have to kind of take it to that next level. And, that's what this is all about. A lot of the advice out there for finding your purpose is kind of like pretty basic, right? I'm sure a lot of you have seen some of the advice out there for finding your purpose on the internet. And like I said, I think that this exercise is better. Before, we talked about looking at your phone for pictures. This comes from James Altucher, and it comes from his book called Skip the Line. And a down and dirty way for discovering your purpose is looking at the pictures on your phone. There might be things that you take a lot of pictures of that kind of could be your purpose. Like I gave the example at the beginning of the video, I take a lot of pictures of food that I cook, and that could be one of my purposes. That could be something that I could turn into a business. It could be something you turn into a business. Our purpose goes beyond making money, of course. It could be, anything. It could be something that fulfills your life. That's why I think kind of looking at your phone for pictures is a good one. Also, what videos do you find yourself watching on the internet? Do you find yourself watching the same stuff or information about the same stuff? I would write down all these things, by the way, on a piece of paper. Uh, I also say, what interests do you really have that you discount? And what I mean by this is, like, for example, before I started my tarot channel, I've been interested in tarot since I was like 10 years old. And it's something I've always been interested in, but it wasn't something I took seriously until I started my channel. So I had been reading for people before that, but again, I didn't really take it seriously until I started my channel. I was just kind of like dabbling in it. I learned a lot about it. I knew a lot about it, but I discounted the information. I didn't really see it as something that was valuable. So I want you to think about some things that maybe you discount. Are there things that you're good at that you feel like aren't important? Are there things that you feel like don't matter? I would write those things down because, again, if I never did what I'm doing now with tarot, I wouldn't be where I am right now, plain and simple. So you never know how something can turn into something much more significant. I also have here, what have people told you that you are good at but don't think you're good at? Just to give you an example, when I was younger, I was a copywriter, and actually I've been a copywriter for many years. And it all started because I had done some copy for a friend, and someone came to me and they said, "Hey, you're an amazing copywriter. You're really good at copywriting. Why don't you do this for a living?" And it was nothing I ever thought I was good at. I'm actually terrible at writing. I'm sure that you've caught many mistakes that I've made. And I always say I fell on my head when I was 10 years old. And after I fell on my head, I went from like an A, B student down to a C, D student in school, and I couldn't pay attention. And it kind of messed me up, and I can't spell. I have all these problems, right? Because I fell on my head. So what I would say here is I'm terrible at writing. So it's not something that I ever thought I would be good at, but it was something that made me a living for many years. It's something that still benefits me to this day. So, what are you good at that people have told you you're good at, but maybe you don't think you are? What are things that you've always wanted to do but have not? And I have here because. The because part of this is, are there things that you're making excuses for? Are there things that you want to do that you're making excuses for? I don't know. I have a list about a mile long of things that I probably should do that haven't, right? But I think writing down that list is important because at least you have it. So what I want you to do is I want you to answer these questions on a piece of paper. Pause the video and do this. Do not skip forward. And I'm serious. So make sure to pause the video right now because we're about to move on to go a little bit deeper into this. And I want to make sure that you get this out on paper first. So don't skip ahead. You're not allowed to. All right, we're going to move on to part 2. There are going to be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 exercises, I think, that are all going to be about writing a list. As I say here, you paid for the course, so you might as well do this exercise. This exercise itself, this video, is only something that you're probably only going to have to do once. On top of that, you can add to every single one of these lists for as long as you want, but this is something you're only going to do once. It'll take you half an hour maximum. I think that's the most time that someone will spend on this, and it's not something you have to spend a lot of time on. So do this exercise. Trust me, again, this is one of the exercises that completely changed my life, and it's something that I think will help you as well. So I want you to write down a list of everything you would do if everything in your life went 100% your way. So if there were no mistakes, if nothing bad could happen, if you had all the resources, everything that you could possibly imagine, anything you want to have, anything you want to create, any experience, everything that comes to mind. I want you to write those things down on a list. And, this list could be 100 things long. It could be 200 things long. Take your time. There's no rush. So fill out the list, put down as many things as you can. And when you feel like you can't go any further, I want you to write down 10 more things. It's usually those last 10 things that are very important. So that's going to be the first list. I want you to write down everything that you would do, like I said, any experiences that you want to have, anything you want to create, whatever comes to mind. I want you to write it down on a list and take your time. Pause the video and feel free to do that. We're going to move on to the next part. So for part 3, I want you to write down another list. I want you to write down everything you are good at, any skill that you have, everything that maybe someone has told you that you're good at as well here. There are things like I just gave the example of the copywriting. People told me that I was good at that, but there are other things that maybe people told you you are good at. Could be jumping rope. It could be writing. It could be anything that you do. It could be watching movies. It could be that you're good at walking down the road. I don't care how big or small it is. I want you to write down everything that someone has told you or that you feel that you are good at just in general. Also, do you have any weaknesses as well? And I say here repetitive weaknesses. Here's what I mean by that. My grandfather, he used to call me later when I was a kid because he said whenever I was asked to do something, I would say later. I don't know. I can't confirm whether or not this is true, but maybe it was true, right? So people, my mom, my dad, my grandfather, they would ask me to do something and I would always say later. And so this is something that I was really good at, right? Was doing something later. And there's a reason that I want you to write these things down. So on this list here, this second list, I want you to include all these things. Is there anything that could be potentially a weakness? It might not be a weakness. Maybe you have a nickname. Maybe people kind of pointed something out inside of you. Put it on a list because later is on my list. I also, you can ignore this right here because we're going to do this at the end, the circle, the top 10. So feel free to pause this video and write that list. All right, on to part 4. Is this your last list? I think it is. So I want you to write down a list of all the resources that you have. This could be financial. It could be a skill, like are you good at basket weaving, worm farming, breeding hamsters? I don't care what it is. Those are ridiculous examples, of course, but I want you to write down all the skills that you know you have, all the things that you know that you're good at. I also, and the skills are resources basically as well. I know that sounds like a duplicate of whatever this list is here, but things that you're good at, but this is slightly different. This is like a resource or something that could provide resources that you're writing down on this list. It could also be items as well. It could be like a car, a blender, a jump rope. Are there things that you own that you think are important? Just to give you an example, I own a bunch of recording equipment, of course, because I have a YouTube channel. So that is a resource. I own a bunch of cameras. I own a bunch of audio equipment and all this other stuff. So those are all resources that I would write down on the list. I also have like other things as well, like computers. I have a TV. I have an Xbox. That, believe it or not, that is a resource. So I want you to write down all the resources and especially the things that you think are resources. Anything that feels right, I want you to write those things down on a list. So do that, pause the video, and go ahead and write your list of resources. Next, what we are going to do is there are some things that we're going to do with each list. The first thing is I want you to go back to all the lists that you wrote, and I want you to circle the top 10 things that stand out on each list. So anything that really catches your eye, anything that really resonates with you, I want you to circle those things. I want you to put also a star or a dash or a check mark, whatever you choose, next to any similarities between multiple lists, and it can be different than your top 10. So there might be things that aren't in your top 10 that are kind of similar between multiple lists. And I have here an example. It's like maybe you own a dog. Maybe people tell you that you are good with dogs. And maybe one of your dreams is to own a dog park. So that would show up on like 3 lists. And some of the similarities might only show up on 2 lists. But, this is one of the quickest ways to discover your purpose, because if you have a similarity between 3 of the lists or 2 of the lists, it's probably something that you're interested in. It's probably something that you want to or could turn into quote unquote purpose. So, congratulations. There you go. There's also more to this. I would say, can anything be reframed on the list? Again, my grandfather, he used to call me later, but this led me to be really good at finding faster ways of doing things. I used to work at a cafe, and I always tell this story, but the person that I worked for, he had this whole system for the cafe, and I was able to catch on very, very quickly. Why? Because I was kind of like lazy, and I always wanted to do things later. So I always found like faster ways to do things. Doing things faster isn't always good, but it was actually a skill that I was good at. So again, I want you to look at anything on your list that might be considered a weakness, which we talked about earlier, might be considered something that isn't good, but can it be reframed? Can you put it in another perspective? And again, in the members area, if you go to the day 2 post, if you need help reframing things or anything like that, just put a comment on the day 2 post and I will be able to help you out there because without knowing your exact situation, it might not be, that easy to discover, but with a little bit of thought, you'll be able to figure it out. I have here that Einstein had other people doing his math. He just had good ideas. There's a story about Einstein that he was picturing a proton moving fast through space, and he was picturing another proton chasing after that proton, and that's how he came up with the theory of relativity or whatever. And, he just pictured it, but he had other people doing the math. And this is why this part of the exercise is important because you never know when you might discover your genius. It's like your genius, people considered Einstein to be stupid. His teachers told him that he was dumb. His teachers told his parents that he wasn't good at math, but he really wasn't. He was just good. He just saw things that other people didn't, right? And he had other people do his math. So this is why this part is important. And I would say, as I say here, is there anything like this on your list? You're going to have to write it down. Tomorrow, we are going to talk about taking action on some of these ideas or your purpose. What can you do with your purpose? Are there ways to make money? Are there ways to put it out into the world? What is the answer? And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. Thank you, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow.